We'll get back to him shortly. As promised, though, there's a lot to unpack from the Democratic debate last night. 4 years ago, Democrats came up with a new and untested political theory. They could win the White House, their strategist promised, if only they called enough people racist. That was the plan. Hillary Clinton, for one, thought it was brilliant. By Election Day, she had denounced fully half the country as bigots. In the end, it did not work. Maybe not surprisingly, it turns out that when you tell people you hate them, they don't care for it. What voters strongly prefer, actually, is when you try to improve their lives. It's not complicated. And yet somehow, and this is the remarkable part if you think about it, Democrats have, in the 3 years since they lost, steadfastly refused to learn this lesson. Improve people's lives, they'll tell you? No thanks. They think their job is to improve people. They think voters are disgusting and immoral. They want to force them to be half as virtuous as they are. For the second election cycle in a row, that is the Democratic message. You're disgusting. Try to be as good as we are. That message was on florid display last night at the candidates' debate. Watch to pick just one among countless examples of it, as Washington Governor Jay Inslee blames Americans for the coming end of the world.
We cannot work it out. We cannot work this out. The time is up. Our house is on fire. We have to stop using coal in 10 years. And we need a president to do it or it won't get done. Get off coal. Save this country and the planet. That's what I'm for.
Okay, so let's say carbon emissions really are responsible for global climate change. We don't know that. Science has not proved it. Sorry, it is not. But just for the sake of argument, let's stipulate that it's true. Carbon causes climate change. China is by far the world's biggest emitter of carbon. So shouldn't Governor Inslee, who cares very deeply about climate change, turn his wrath on the Chinese? Well, of course. But he didn't and never will, because for Democrats, everything is always the fault of America's voters. Watch Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York brag about that time she harangued some of the poorest, most desperate people in America about how actually they're privileged, too privileged, even as they languish in chronic unemployment and drop dead by the hundreds of thousands from a widely ignored drug epidemic. The real problem, Kirsten Gillibrand told them, is their white privilege.
I don't believe that it's the responsibility of Cory and Kamala to be the only voice that takes on these issues of institutional racism, systemic racism in our country. I think as a white woman of privilege who is a U.S. Senator running for President of the United States, it is also my responsibility to lift up those voices that aren't being listened to. And I can talk to those white women in the suburbs that voted for Trump and explain to them what white privilege actually is. So my responsibility is to not only lift up those stories, but explain to communities across America, like I did in Youngstown, Ohio, to a young mother, that this is all of our responsibilities.
Yeah. They're privileged in Youngstown. That's Youngstown's problem. Just too much privilege. Not to be outdone, Julian Castro attacked Americans for daring to complain about illegal immigration into their country. Open borders, he explained, is just a right-wing talking point. And then a single breath later, Castro called for repealing the law that makes it a crime to enter America illegally. Watch.
Open borders is a right-wing talking point. And frankly, I'm disappointed that some folks, including some folks on this stage, have taken the bait. The only way that we're going to guarantee that we don't have family separations in this country again is to repeal Section 1325 of the Immigration and Nationality Act.
Cory Booker, meanwhile, is in the process of transitioning to a brand new identity. He spent most of the evening trying to sound like a Nation of Islam recruiter rather than the deep